Hello everyone and welcome to the Exalted Wargamer. My name is Stan and today I'm gonna show you how I paint the skeleton warriors for my new Vampire Counts army for the old world. As you may have noticed, it's October and almost Halloween. So why not to paint some spooky scary stuff? I wanted to build and paint the undead army for a long time and now it's looked like a perfect time. So join me on this epic painting journey. As with any other painting project, I prefer to start my army with a good old big block of regular dudes, skeleton warriors in this case. There are plenty different undead miniatures on the market, but for this project I chose the beautiful designs by Highlands Miniatures. They are experts in the creation of 3D printable miniatures. And I really like their approach, with a quite simple but characterful old school designs. And the skeleton warriors in particular look like a perfect starting point for the army. They are 70% just bones with a couple extra details such as swords, shields and extra armor. So I believe I can finish the whole unit in about a week. And it helps me to jumpstart my new undead army. So yeah, I printed 20 of them and painted a couple to test out the color scheme. Speaking of which, I want my whole army to look quite grimdark, but not just a grey-brown oily mess. I want to make it quite desaturated with lots of different greens, browns and blue tones and sepia shades, like artworks of John Blanche, who created the foundation of modern Warhammer. Luckily, the army painter creates two different paint sets in a collaboration with this talented artist. So yeah, as a little extra spice and homage, I will use only the paints from these two paint sets by John Blanche, plus black and white. But enough preamble, let's start painting. And as always, I started by priming models black. I personally use the Vallejo black primer and apply it with an airbrush, but it's not really important. You can use any brand you like or even rattle can primer. The main goal here is to achieve smooth coverage all over the miniature. After the primer completely dried, I decided to establish the bone color with the airbrush. But what color exactly? I think it will be too boring to make the bones just regular ivory with hints of sepia or brown. Because I want to make the earthy bases and brown belts on my skeleton, it would be too closely to such bone color and quite boring in general. So, instead, I decided to make some kind of old mossy bleachy bones with different greens and browns in the shadows. But either way, I started by spraying the dark reddish brown all over the miniatures. It's quite difficult to apply light tones straight over the black, so this kind of underpainting will create a solid foundation for the further layers. What's more, it gives us some interesting warm brown shadow in the deepest areas. Next, I established the main bone tone by applying zenithal highlight with a nice oily brown color. I want to keep the underpainting in shadows, so I sprayed the paint at about 45 degrees. As a final highlight, I airbrushed the pure ivory on the most prominent areas. At this moment it may look a bit too bright, but it's just a foundation and I'll change it soon. But before I'll continue, I want to say a big thanks to you, all my viewers, and especially to my subscribers. You really motivate me to create new videos covering the all different topics. And if you want more hobby videos and stories of all sorts, make sure to hit this subscribe button right now. It really helps the channel to grow and you'll get more content just like this in the future. So now let's get back to painting. So now I'm finished with the airbrushing and now it's time for the regular brush. And the general plan is to give a wash with the bones and metal areas. Why not all over the models, you may ask? Well, generally I just don't like how washes look on larger surfaces like these clothes. So here I started to paint all these metal areas with a nice dark metal color. Luckily there are not too many of them, mostly the swords, armor leftovers and thumb shield elements. The leader of a unit has way more metal equipment left, but that's not a big deal. Some skeletons have extra metal studs on belt and shield, but as you might have noticed, I haven't painted them yet. It will be easier to paint them in the end, as the base areas are quite small, so they look okay even without a wash. I deliberately use only the iron colors for the metal parts, because I want my skeletons to look like just a regular guys. The only exception is the trumpet and the musician. In this case I use this coppery golden color. So now all the metal base coats are done, but now we need to wait until they are completely dried. About half an hour will be enough. It's quite an important step, because I find out that washes can reactivate metal paints if applied too early. But I don't want to waste this time, so why not to paint some bases? The main color of the base will be created later with the pigments, but now I need to establish a rocky foundation. So, first of all, I just cover the base with nice bluish gray, and then start to dry brush it in several layers by adding some ivory to the gray. Nice and simple. I painted my skeletons in a batch of 10. By the time I finished with the last base, my metal colors are dried on the whole unit. So let's apply our washes. And as a wash color I picked the Grimdark shadow. It's some kind of brownish, greenish dark tone, which is quite hard to describe, but I just applied it all over the bones and metal parts. I applied it quite heavily, but still tried to avoid big slopes of wash by pushing the pigment in the recesses. Generally I try to avoid other areas, but as I haven't painted them yet, it's not too important now. After some consideration, I decided to add a bit more color to the bones by applying the voodoo shade over the skeletal joints and on the legs. This shade is a bit lighter and contains more green, so I think it will create some nice color variations. And now we need to wait until the washes dry completely. And in the meantime I want to return to the bases and apply the pigments. I mixed some natural umber by Vallejo with water and applied this mixture all over the bases. Depending on the consistency, it may require a couple of layers for the nice looking surface. And at this point I left my miniatures to dry for about an hour. So yeah, this project required lots of patience. Anyway, after both pigments and washes dried, I painted the base rims black, covered my miniatures with a matte varnish. It's not only hide the wash glossiness and creates a nice surface for further painting, but also will fix the pigments on the bases. What's more, it will leave pigments only in the deepest recesses, uncovering the grey rock that I painted earlier. Now all the preparation steps are done, so I can start working on the most interesting part of the paint job, the highlights. And first of all, I want to refine the bones with the same color as I used with the airbrush. I started with the almost pure olive brown and a little bit of ivory, passing all over the bones with this mix. The consistency of paint is the key in this process. I diluted the paint quite well, so it looked more like a glaze, and then I started to apply it in regular short strokes, moving my brush from the shadow to the edges. This way I pushed the pigments to the most prominent areas, but still created quite soft transition from the shadow colors. Then I started to add more and more ivory to the mix and repeat the highlights, but this time I reduced the area of application even more, and still working in short brush strokes trying to imitate some chipping on the old bones. Also noted that I try to put my highlights on the upper facing areas such as ribs, skull, hand bones and shoulder blades. Finally I paint the extreme highlight with a pure ivory. This time I reduce the highlight area even more, concentrating mostly around the head area. Naturally, when you look at the miniature, the head and hands draw the most attention. So here I want to boost this color punch on the key areas even more. It might be a bit time consuming, but the bones is the main part of these skeleton warriors. So I think it's okay to spend a bit more time here. Now, after the bones were painted, there are just a couple of details left to do. And first of all, I need to paint all these rags and clothes leftovers. I don't think these undead guys have any kind of uniform, so I decided to paint all this stuff in different colors such as green, purple, blue, black and brown. There won't be any particular recipes here, but just general ideas. As the clothes elements are quite small and insignificant, I don't want to spend too much time painting it, so I paint them in 3 simple steps. First of all, I established the shadow color all over the clothes by mixing the main color with the black or dark blue. Then I started to highlight tracks with chosen base color, leaving the dark tone in the shadows. Finally, I picked the sharpest edge with a mix of base color and ivory. Keep in mind that ivory is quite a strong color, so you need just a little bit of it. What's more, it will desaturate all the colors. So, despite the fact that we use different colors for the clothes elements on individual skeletons, they still look like a coherent unit, thanks to the overall desaturated and worn look. The next important element to paint is the leather belts, and again, for some diversity and visual interest, I want to paint them in two different ways. But to save some time, the first two steps will be the same for both leather types. First of all, I base coated our belts with a mix of dark blue-green and warm reddish-brown. It may sound a bit counterintuitive, but blue colors are perfect for the rich, interesting shadows on the leather elements. Really, the next time you'll paint some boots or belts or leather armor, try to add a bit of dark blue in glazes or deepest shadows. I promise, you'll get the really cool results. But let's get back to our belts. And at the first highlight I use the pure dark reddish brown. Apply it in with the short, irregular brush strokes to simulate the old, worn, cracked leather. And at this point I started creating different highlight mixes for the two leather types. For the colder yellowish leather I started adding this nice orangey brown to our original highlight color. And for the warmer leather variant I mixed the original reddish brown with the rich terracotta color. And again, applied the irregular vertical highlights, but this time concentrated more on the upper edge of the belts. Finally, I added a little bit of ivory for both mixes, and then put just a couple random dots on the belts, but don't overdo this stage, or leather starts to look too bright instead of gold. Now to the last major part of our skeleton warriors, the wooden parts of the shields. I'm already a bit tired, so this time I will paint all the wooden elements the same, and as a base coat I use a dark reddish brown. It may look like I use this reddish brown color like a base coat for the almost all different elements on these miniatures. And yeah, that's true. So, when I will start working on the next unit for my undead army, maybe I'll use it as a general underpainting to save me some time. But let's get back to the shields. As you may already guess, I'm aiming for the old rodent look for the wooden planks. So, I started to highlight by adding some olive green to our original brown color, but this time I'm drawing the longer vertical highlights to simulate the wood grain, and again a little bit of ivory for some final most eye-catching highlights. But at this point I felt that I overdo it a bit. So, to tone down the brightness of the wood, I covered the shields with a dark green and olive glazes. Yes, that definitely looks better. Now my miniatures are almost completed. But I still need to finish with the metals, and first of all I paint all the leftover studs and nails on the belts and shields with a pure black. It creates the shadow area around and makes the applying of metal color easier. Speaking of which, I gently paint all the elements with our dark steel color, trying to leave a bit of black in the shadows. And at this point I decided to add some rust to my metals. And generally I'm not a big fan of rust effect paints. But as it's already in this paint set, why not to try it this time? So yeah, I just slapped a bit of this rust over the helms, blades, shoulder pads and over some nails. Still not sure I like how it looks, but it is what it is. Maybe you have some experience with this rust effect or I just completely messed it up. Write it down in the comments below. And to finish with the metals, I just refined some upper facing edges with the original dark steel color. In the final step, I want to add some grass tufts to the bases. What can be easier? Just put some PVA glue on the bases and put the grass tufts on the top. Why do you even bother to film this, you may ask? Well, there are a couple of little tricks on how to level up your grass tufts and make them look even more cooler. And first of all, after the tufts are glued, I put a little bit of watered down dark wash in the middle of each tuft. As my tufts are brownish, I use some sepia wash, but you get the idea. And the second, I slightly dry brush the top of the tufts with the ivory. Nice and simple. So this way you can make even the simplest grass tufts to look good. And now our painting is finally done. In the meantime, I painted 10 more skeletons the same way. So now I have the whole 20-man squad. And it's time for the final reveal. So yeah, here they are. And I absolutely like how they look in a squad. What's more, I'm really happy that I managed to finish the whole unit in about 5 days. You know, the regular chaff dudes it's not the most funnest thing to paint. For me, it's really important to finish this stage quite quickly, so I don't lose the tempo at this point. But now I can reward myself and paint a singular hero until I'll start work on the next unit. What's more, as you may notice, I changed the storytelling a bit in this video, so it's a bit less a straightforward tutorial. Instead, I want to tell a bit more about my painting journey, like decisions, trials and failures. Because in my opinion, it's not that important which particular colors and brand you use, but why you choose these tones and how you apply it. Because this way, through creativity, I find my joy in miniature painting hobby. So, do you like this new approach? Do you want to see more videos like this? Or you prefer kinda regular step-by-step tutorials? Write it down in a comment section below. But I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching and see you soon.